Good morning. My name's Ryan Dividock. I'm the supervisor for the Planning, Zoning, and Land Use Unit here within the Business Planning and Local Business Development Division here in Oakland County. Welcome to today's Planners Gathering. Lean and Green Michigan's PACE program, that's Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. PACE is a long-term financing tool that's facilitated through local governments and it allows commercial property owners in Michigan to make energy efficiency, water conservation, and renewable energy upgrades at their facilities. Property owners receive 100% of the funding upfront to complete their projects. And Oakland County has partnered with Lean and Green Michigan on the countywide PACE program since 2016. So just a few reminders before we get started. The meeting's being recorded and will be made available on our website. And if you have questions, please direct them to Jim Schaefer using the chat function in Zoom. Jim will moderate a question and answer session after the presentation. So let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce our presenter today, John Wylie. He's a senior counsel for Lean and Green Michigan. John, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ryan. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. I have a short presentation and then I'll leave plenty of time for questions. So let me swap this real quick. All right, so hopefully everyone can see that. Like Ryan said, I'm John Wylie. I'm with Lean and Green Michigan, and we are the administrator for the PACE program in Oakland County. PACE is Property Assessed Clean Energy. So Lean and Green Michigan is a company, and we've taken it upon ourselves to create a PACE marketplace in Michigan. Throughout all of Michigan. So we partner with Oakland County, but we partner with plenty of other governments and local governments as well. We kind of shepherd projects through initial contact with lenders or property owners or contractors, whoever's interested in using the PACE program. We take the information they have and help them navigate the process. Ultimately, you're hoping to get them funding for the project they want to do. The work that we do is on behalf of the local government in Oakland County here, that no cost to the government, no taxpayer funds, no anything. The only fee that we get paid is by the property owner at the very end of closing. So there's absolutely no harm in anyone reaching out to us and talking. A lot of my week and a lot of our week is meeting with people, talking about their projects, seeing how we can direct them in the right way, connect them with partners, and seeing if the project and PACE is a good fit. And if it's not, then we can help direct them somewhere else. So as a company, Lean and Green Michigan administers 59 different programs throughout the state. That includes counties that you see there highlighted in green, and then there's also cities and townships, and you see the smaller dots in there. Any local unit of government can have a PACE program. We typically work with counties just because that is the largest local unit of government that can have one, so it makes the most sense to work with the largest area. But sometimes if the county is not interested or they're just not ready to join for whatever reason and they want to defer to the local government, we can have a township or city join. At one time, or currently still, there's quite a few townships or cities within Oakland County that have their own program. And then ultimately Oakland County joined a little bit after. So we work primarily with the county at this point. It's more of a streamlined process. While there is some areas we still don't have, we're continuing to expand. We have meetings with different counties. Like as we speak, we added 3 or 4 new ones last year. And at this point, we cover over 75% of the population of Michigan. So as you can imagine, a lot of activities in the Metro Detroit area, Wayne, Oakland, Macomb County. But we've had a lot of activity also in Grand Traverse County. There's been a lot of growth up there in Traverse City and in those areas, and as well around Lansing. And then obviously other population centers like Grand Rapids. So a quick kind of overview of what PACE is and what PACE can do. So the first thing is what is an eligible property to use PACE financing. So most importantly, it has to be privately owned. So we can't work with any local government buildings. However, anything that's privately owned and leased to a government, we've done projects where there's an office building that the state of Michigan leases for space and that property owner wanted to use PACE. We've also done plenty of projects with nonprofits, so we get that question a lot. Even though they don't have a property tax bill, we can still work with nonprofits. But anything privately owned, retail, office, hospitality, multifamily, as long as there's 4 units or more. So not duplexes or triplexes, but 4 or more. Senior living, we've seen a lot of activity in, and any type of mixed use property. We also do any type of industrial or agricultural as well. So PACE financing, as the name suggests, property assessed clean energy, is for things that are energy efficient or renewable or help mitigate against environmental hazards. So there's a whole list of things and items that can be eligible for PACE financing, but they kind of break themselves in a couple main categories. Big one being energy efficiency. So anything you would do to a building that would increase its energy efficiency and ultimately decrease a utility bill, whether that's electric or natural gas. So the big ones we see a lot are lighting, switching from old lighting to high efficiency LEDs, especially lighting controls. That's a really big one. You see that more and more now in areas and hotels and things where they have automatic light sensors. And that's because based on a lot of code, you have to have lighting in stairwells or certain areas at all times, but it's allowable to have a motion sensor as well. So you can go from you having a pretty infrequently used stairwell that has to be lit 24/7, or if you install lighting controls, you can have it only lit when someone walks in, and that's still allowable, but it saves a bunch on energy. Other big things are kind of building envelope items, insulation, roofing. There's really almost no upper limit to how insulated something can get. There's a minimum with building code or what your building code used to be for older buildings, but you can continue to insulate and create an even more energy efficient building. Or even simple things like caulking or weather stripping or tuck pointing. And then another energy efficiency item that is specifically outlined in the statute is EV charging. So those are available. The other big one's water efficiency, and those it's pretty self-explanatory when it comes to low flow faucets, sinks, shower heads, toilets. But we can also do things like stormwater recapture or gray water systems. Another big one is renewables. So anything you would think of as wind or solar or geothermal. A new thing in the past year is environmental hazard PACE. So it was expanded, the statute was expanded to include this, and this can be mitigation of harmful substances like PFAS and lead, or anything that protects the building against severe weather. And we're still kind of learning on what people's interest in this is. Obviously, around the country, a lot of different states have PACE statutes. You see some things in California like seismic, or in Florida, to mitigate the effects of hurricane. We haven't seen as much of that in Michigan, luckily, but a big one we see is flooding and buildings that are close to water, the rivers or lakes, to kind of protect flooding with rebuilding their seawall and stuff. Another one is as cool one is an anaerobic digester. We've done at least one of those projects in Michigan, and that's specifically outlined as eligible. So some of the benefits of PACE, it is a funding source. We get this question a lot. It's not a grant program, pure funding source, but it's set up in a way to be beneficial to enable property owners to take on these projects as a way to encourage them to make their building more efficient, because it betters everyone. So all the funding comes from private capital providers, and there's national PACE lenders, there's banks, there's credit unions that are interested. We work primarily with national PACE lenders. And you'll match them up with property owners. Some of the benefits for the property owner is that's fixed interest throughout the entire process. So at the time of closing, the interest rate is set, and that's fixed throughout the entire payment. The 100% upfront financing, so it's not an equity match, it's not an 80-20, anything like that. It's whatever is PACE eligible, that becomes 100% financeable. And it can be long-term, up to 25 years. So on the we like to think of it as a win-win-win for everyone. Obviously, for the property owners, they're getting the benefit of the loans and able to make the improvements to the building, and then they're going to see those benefits in their utility bills. For the lender, the reason that they're so willing to go out and make these loans at a fixed rate for long term is they get the added security of the ultimate security interest, which is a tax assessment on the property or a special assessment. And then for local governments, in order to partner with us, we want them to get something as well. First of all, they're getting the community is getting better, more resilient buildings that are built above code to a higher quality, and then also increased investment in the area, especially from a lot of times it's out of state sources that are funneling money into Oakland County, and they're funneling money into Lake Orion or White Lake or Troy, all these different areas, and it's sometimes it's millions and millions of dollars at a time that helps build new housing. It helps create new jobs. It helps create senior housing and improve commercial buildings. Question we get often when we work with property owners is, how does this affect any other type of financing that we have? So traditionally, PACE works really well with just about anything in the capital stack. The most important thing is the senior lender. There's a requirement in Michigan that anyone who takes out a PACE loan gets consent from their senior lender. And that's because of the way that a PACE loan is secured. It's with a tax assessment. So there's an issue with priority. And that, we have great relationships with a lot of senior lenders. We're able to match people with senior lenders that work with them, or we're able to talk with senior lenders for the first time. And that's another big thing that Lean Green Michigan does for property owners and helps benefit the PACE program. But other things that we work with are historic tax credits, brownfield TIFs, solar tax credits, USDA back loans. We spent a couple years and we finally got approved by HUD to stack PACE on HUD projects. That included getting an opinion letter from the Attorney General and applying through the local HUD office. So it took a little while, but we finally got that. We're one of just a few states around the country, and plenty of other economic development incentives. We've worked with Oprah, we've worked with CRA, we've worked with NEZ, any type of credit. It really benefits the project and it doesn't impact PACE at all. So a little bit on some market data that we have. Through the end of last year, we financed 87 different projects throughout the state. And that equates to $307 million in private investment. And these numbers are kind of hard to picture exactly what they mean, but millions in kilowatt hours saved and CO2 metric tons saved and gallons of water. Typically, the goal for any project is, if we're investing $1 million in PACE, we want that owner to see at least $1 million in savings throughout the life of the project. So that's really kind of how it boils down, is we like to see at least a 1-for-1 savings for the property owner. Because while there's ultimately there's probably some ancillary benefits to making investments in your property, the value goes up and everything, we really want to see, we want them to see PACE as a reason to invest, is you're going to see it on your bottom line every month, every year with your utility deductions. So installing those higher end sinks and the higher end insulation is going to make you more energy efficient, but it's going to put money back in your pocket at the end of the day. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, there was 2 changes to the PACE law last year that went into effect, and we've gone around the state updating everyone's program. So Oakland County is updated and up to date. The 2 big things is, where I mentioned there, we want to see a 1-for-1 with all projects. That used to be a requirement, and now it is a waivable requirement for retrofit projects. So if you have an existing building and you want to upgrade things, we want all the projects to be designed to be a 1-to-1 savings. However, if that can't be achieved for whatever reason, the property owner is able to waive that. And we kind of saw that as a common sense thing where, if you're still saving 90% or you're saving 95%, we don't want that to be a roadblock into you making these upgrades. So if the property owner is good with that 90% or that 95% or almost getting to the 1-to-1, we want that, PACE to still be an option for them to make the upgrades. New construction, we just kind of reworked how it was written. So it was codified that in order to do a new construction PACE project, there is nothing to compare to, it's a brand new build. So we've made the decision to go with above code. So if code insulation is R30 and you have to exceed that to make it PACE eligible, if it's 1.5 gallons per minute toilets or faucets, you have to exceed that. And then those items that exceed it become PACE eligible. That hazardous mitigation or the resilience against severe weather was also an introduction last year. We've seen that popular around the country. Like I mentioned, there's a few states where they really, really need it for everything because they see it a lot. We're still kind of working out exactly where it's going to be used, but it's definitely something we're glad to expand to, because it really fits with kind of the mission of PACE, is to get people money upfront for these costly improvements, or in that case remediations, where it would be really easy for a property owner to just say, I don't have the money, my bank is not going to give me a loan for this, I don't want to do it. But it benefits everyone if they do it. So to give them a funding source where it does make financial sense to do it. We were glad to see that expanded. So I want to highlight a couple items around the state, or sorry, around the county, and a couple projects that we've done recently. So this was a project we closed last year. I believe at this time it's our largest in the county. It's getting built right now in downtown Birmingham. So this is, you might see it rising at this point. I believe it's going to be some offices and some apartments, and a law firm is moving in actually. So this used PACE to upgrade the building in a new construction with the building envelope, the HVAC, the windows, and the lighting and the plumbing. Another project in Lake Orion, the Laurels, which is a senior living facility. So here you see, at 2.1 million in finance with 2.7 in net savings over the life. You see a lot of the same things: building envelope, lighting, HVAC, and then domestic hot water. So that's a big one we see often is a change to the efficiency of the hot water heating sources. One in downtown Pontiac, this is a retrofit project, the Strand Theater. So as you can see, like on a retrofit project, the net savings are often a lot higher because they're taking some really, really old inefficient items and upgrading them. And that's where we see exponential benefits. So 1.8 million in financed, and you have 4.7 net utility savings, but then you have 8.2 million in total savings. A lot of times you're including your deferred cost of maintenance, or you're just switching from old light bulbs that might burn out once a year to LEDs that burn out every 5 to 10 years. You're deferring maintenance there, or maintenance on an old boiler system. So a lot of this was HVAC and lighting and building insulation. One of the projects we also did last year was a tear down and a rebuild of a commercial kind of strip mall area. This is a couple restaurants and a couple stores in the Rochester Hills area. So again, you see a lot of these same types of HVAC, building envelope, windows and plumbing. Another one in Rochester Hills we did last year was a senior living facility called Grace Senior Living. And this was a $5 million project. And again, you see a lot of the LED lighting, the building envelope, HVAC and windows. We're hoping to expand this year. We want to see some of our new items be eligible and be used. That's the hazardous remediation and resiliency. So we're really hoping to expand in that realm, as well as see more retrofits. We had a lot of retrofit projects in 2020, 2021 when interest rates were really low, and as they've gone back up, I think we've seen people kind of pull back from doing those types of projects and waiting to see when interest rates might come down a little bit. So we're hoping to see more of those projects, and we're also really hoping to see more of those renewable energy projects in the solar and geothermal. So I know a lot of them are getting done around the state, which is great. I see them all the time driving down the highway. And frankly, for the last couple of years, there's been a lot of federal incentive money out there to do that. So I don't know if that will still be there going forward, but PACE will for sure. And we're able to finance solar, and compared to a lot of traditional financing tools, it can be really competitive. So we're hoping to expand in that realm as well. So that's just a little bit about PACE. I know there's probably some questions and a lot I didn't hit on, so I'm happy to answer anything. Just a few things about the company going forward. Originally, we were founded by Andy Levin back in 2012, and then a couple of years later, he ran for Congress and did that. So we had a couple people take over, and now he's out of Congress and he's back and he's working with us. So some of you might know Andy from local politics and stuff. So he's back working with us. He's always happy to chat about PACE. It's kind of his thing that he's been working on for the past 10 years or even longer. So he's happy to get back into it and tackle some of these these problems and these challenging projects that we've had. So feel free to reach out to him. Feel free to reach out to me. Again, I'm John Wylie. I'm senior counsel. I do a lot of the day-to-day transactional work. So if you have a project that's interested, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll set up a meeting with them and talk with them. I do a lot of work with any legal questions on how PACE works with the security interest and the tax assessment, and then you kind of have our main number there and our website. You can see all the case studies around the entire state. The ones that I picked were just from Oakland County. You can see any case study on our website from any project around the state, all 87 of them. And the last thing I'll mention is last year we took the time and developed what we call a partner training videos. So there's, I think, 9 or 10 videos that are 3 or 4 minutes long that touch on different topics of PACE. So we kind of had different presentations, and everything. And so we consolidated all those and hired that out to do, videos with a voice actor and everything. I think they turned out really good, and they're short and they're pretty simple, and they're on specific topics. So if there's anything that I didn't touch on or I didn't answer, or you want to share that with anyone else that you think it may benefit, takes half an hour or so to go through all of them. You can watch the videos, and they touch on all the different topics of PACE. So with that, I'm glad to open it up to questions. There may or may not be some, and I'm happy to answer them. And then at any time in the future, if you guys think of anything that you didn't think of now, there's my email, there's my number. Feel free to reach out.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Great presentation.
Appreciate it.
A reminder to folks, please do message your questions directly to me, and then we'll get them out there. First question is, after improvements are made, do property taxes increase?
So not because of PACE, I guess in the terms of if there's a large construction project undertaken and permits are pulled, there's a chance that the property gets reassessed, but nothing to do specifically with the PACE program. So I would say no, but I think in reality, there's a chance that the property would get reassessed if a major construction project's being undertaken.
Okay. Can you elaborate a little more on the hazardous opportunities moving forward? You indicated that might be a priority for you folks. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that would look like, or where folks should look to focus?
Yeah, absolutely. On? So it's written in the PACE statute, and the good thing about the Michigan PACE statute, the good and bad thing is it tends to be typically pretty broad. So it'll list a few things, and limited to, but including but not limited to. So in the hazardous one, it lists those few things of mitigation of lead and PFAS and resiliency against severe weather, and then it kind of has a catch-all. So in other states, we've seen that be used for increased foundation resiliency to high winds because they're in a hurricane or zone, or your resiliency against earthquakes. Like I said, I typically think in Michigan we'll see more with flooding because there's a lot of properties that are close to rivers or lakes. The kind of the idea that we think is that it'll be great for people to use who are doing major rehab projects of old and abandoned buildings, where they need to do mitigation of old pipes and potentially hazardous materials in those pipes or in the ground. There's also a great opportunity to utilize it for the kind of the non-improved areas of a property. So if you have a building and there's a parking lot next to it, there's a lot that can be done in the parking lot to mitigate against flooding, using bioswales or regrading. So that's where we think there's a good opportunity for people to capture more through PACE and utilize this. And they're kind of things that people don't think a lot about, especially when it comes down to the final dollars of where you're going to allocate things. But as we've seen throughout the years, flooding can be very, very detrimental to property. So doing those small changes at the beginning, we think would benefit property owners quite a bit in the end.
Okay, and you mentioned lead in the buildings. Would that include like lead service leads, that sort of thing?
Yes.
Where would that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So as long as it's on the property and it's not the local utilities property. So I guess it would kind of depend on the easement probably and where the line is drawn, but any lead in the water systems. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. So people can use PACE for green stormwater infrastructure improvements?
Yep. So previous to the expansion, that was limited to areas that had a service charge for that. So we see that in some local municipalities, the big one in the area being Detroit, but I know there's a few small ones. I think Berkeley and Birmingham might have one where the local government charges per square foot of the property that's non-permeable, and they call it like a drainage fee or a stormwater runoff. So we were able to use that type of technology in those areas because we could tie it to a decrease in utility charge. But now with the expansion, that should be available anywhere. So anywhere where it decreases or it increases the resiliency of the property against stormwater and surge water.
Okay. All right. Not seeing any other questions.
I did get one about financing acquisition of commercial electric vehicles. At this time, it's our opinion that it probably would not be able to be used for the actual vehicles, because those would be considered like personal property instead of real property. However, it could be used for the charging infrastructure for those items. So probably not the actual vehicles, but it could be used for the other portions of that, including the charging, because those would actually be fixtures to the property and thus part of the real property.
Okay, excellent. Ryan, Kristen, do you have anything additional you wanted to add?
I just want to thank John and the rest of the staff at Lean Green, Michigan for being such great partners over the years on the PACE program. They're very easy to work with. So if you do have developers that are interested in this particular type of financing, or if you have projects in mind, please feel free to reach out to John and others at Lean Green, Michigan. They are truly a great partner to work with and make the process easy. So please keep that in mind.
Thanks, Kristen.
Yep, I also wanted to thank John for joining us today, for his insight and expertise. And I also wanted to thank everyone else for joining us. I look forward to seeing you at our next scheduled planners gathering, which is on February 20th, for a presentation from the Oakland County Regional Housing Partnership. So again, thanks for joining. Have a wonderful day.